From the Matrix Home Solutions studios, this is Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Listen to AM 560 The Answer online at 560theanswer.com, on the AM 560 mobile app, on your Alexa-powered smart speaker, and on TuneIn, iHeart, and on Odyssey.
Mike Madigan runs the Democratic House floor for 30 plus years running. He's promising this and he's stealing that. Where can you get that kind of money? He's using your house like his own piggy bank. You ought to know by now. You can pay off your house here in Illinois, but you can never keep up with the taxes. Oh, how it's always been the plan to have a taxpayer pay, no doubt. Not a matter of if anymore, but when. You're moving out. I said, when you're moving out.
Dan and Amy, that theme music means it's time for our weekly conversation with Ted Dabrowski, President Wirepoints, wirepoints.com, all things Illinois policy related. Ted, I've got a riddle for you.
Here we go.
Because this story has been reported 3 months ago and now again. And it's a federal story. It's a national story, but it has state implications. NBC News reported August 15th, the federal government cannot say for sure how much of the more than $900 billion in pandemic-related unemployment relief has been stolen, but credible estimates range from $87 billion to $400 billion, at least half of which went to foreign criminals.
Wow.
So nearly 40% of $900 billion in pandemic-related unemployment relief was stolen, up to that number, according to law enforcement. That was reported in August. I remember because we talked about it, but very few other people did. Didn't register.
No.
Now we get this story yesterday, Washington Times, talking to Haywood Telco, who's the CEO for LexisNexis Risk Solutions Government Division, says 40% of the more than $700 billion spent on unemployment benefits went to fraudsters. Most of the ill-gotten gain, $175 billion, went to overseas actors. Perhaps $140 billion went to organizations that are state-sponsored. And we're talking about China, Russia, Nigeria, Romania. $700 billion, and he puts it at 40%. $900 billion 3 months ago, they put it at upwards of 40%. I mean, hundreds of billions of dollars. All this time that we spend in our public discourse, in the halls of power, arguing about taxing and spending, it's, tens of millions, hundreds of millions, billions in Illinois. It's hundreds of billions and trillions at the federal level. And you can barely generate any interest in where that money actually ends up. And people, even when these stories come out saying half of what we all fought over and what was all extracted from us for this specific purpose wound up in the hands of foreign criminals, and nobody talks about it. Nobody cares. How do you get people to care about where the money the money that's being taken from them and allocated on their behalf? How do you get them to care where it actually ends up?
Ted?
Ted.
Uh-oh.
He's given up?
There.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ted. Go ahead. Sorry, we didn't have you. Go ahead, Ted.
Oh, yeah, I had a similar argument about not this issue, but about something else on government waste, and the answer to me was, well, that's just a part of doing this business. You have to have some losses to get the money out there, and I think the one side, that's how they see it. They see it. This is just if we're trying to get all this COVID money to everybody and protect everybody, well, you're going to have a little spillage. Yeah.
So I mean, but then,
a big oops, maybe. How the heck did they get the money?
Well, because they're cyber criminals. But
okay.
Here's the thing. Then why do you have no politician saying, just so you understand, when we're talking about $900 billion in unemployment relief that's pandemic related, understand, America, that probably 40% of that's going to be stolen. So we actually only expect maybe $400 or $500 billion to get to you, and then criminals from sponsored by our enemies around the world are going to steal the rest of it. Just so you know.
Yeah, well, this is the problem with borrowing money and printing money is that there's no cost today. The cost is going to come in the future. I think the game would be totally different, and if the rules of the game were different, would be taxing people today to pay for stuff, and then they'd go crazy. But when it's the funny money, it's always this funny money. Nobody knows what to do with it. Nobody knows what to believe, and I guess it's just the world we're in now, where double speak, double think. You can't figure it out, but it's absolutely crazy that we would waste all this money, or we're enriching bad guys. But that's the world we live in.
But it's just it's a culture, it seems to me, and this Illinois is perhaps ground zero for this, where there's just no responsibility attached to the dollars. We all agreed we're going to spend this much to do this good thing, and now we're done with that. We don't have to pay attention to that anymore. And I don't even want to hear if it didn't get to its intended target, because I already feel good about myself for supporting it. So don't give me any bad news. Just continue to feed me beautiful lies.
Yeah, I don't want to hear the truth, or if I do hear the truth, it's coming from the bad guys who want to tell the truth about the numbers. So it's
right.
You've been harping on all day. We're in this mode. I'm reminded of your running the YouTube, I think the other day, of Yuri Bezmenov, and we're one of those things where normalization. I don't know which stage there are. He's got 4 stages, but we're already there where we're unmoved by craziness.
Well, speaking of budgets, Wirepoints.com recently wrote an article about Governor Pritzker, the man with 2 budget faces. Can you explain?
Yeah, I mean, and this kind of goes back to the point you two guys are making right now. Here goes more craziness. Just a year ago, Governor Pritzker had a very sad face, and he presented what I'd say are horrendous numbers for the 5-year forecast. He predicted we're going to lose billions of dollars each year, up nearly $5 billion a year. Our unpaid bills were going to go to $30 billion, and it was all done in a timely way. Guess what? For a federal bailout, right? So the worse the numbers look, the more we could get. Fast forward a year, and now he's saying, "Look what a great job we've done in Illinois. Our deficits are, not gone, but nearly gone, and it's the hard work that we've done in the administration to turn this around." And you're like, he's got a happy face now. It's like you can't have it both ways, Governor Pritzker. And if you look at the numbers, you just see that suddenly the projections of the money coming into the coffers are fantastic.
2 faces and 8 chins associated with those 2 faces. Hello. So, COVID policy. Pritzker has been relatively silent, which is surprising. Usually he's trying to seize the podium to take advantage of a crisis, like a manufactured one, like the hysteria over the weekend with the South African variant. What do you see as Pritzker's play on COVID going forward, particularly with Biden essentially suggesting there's not going to be any more lockdowns, and I don't think he's interested in having his fellow traveling governors institute lockdowns either? Well,
it kind of ties back into the numbers we just discussed. It's almost campaign season, right? It's a year away, and he's got to start listening to what's happening in other states and say, is the trend against me here if I do lockdowns? Do I have to start suddenly behaving more normal and allowing people to have more freedoms? He's got to think about it, and I know that his world is probably shut down, locked down, protect, but he's going to have to balance that with the reality. And
it's very strange. Ever since he released that statement on Kyle Rittenhouse, he has not made himself, or his staff have not made him available to any media. Like, he showed up at the Magnificent Lights Parade with Minnie Mouse, and then did a menorah lighting. Then was gone for a week, did a menorah lighting, no reporters, just B-roll only. And then tonight he's going to the Hideout, which is so apropos because he's hiding out from the media, and he can't hide from us forever, and he needs to answer some questions.
Well, yeah, he made a big mistake on that Rittenhouse comment, and everybody called him out for the lies. So, maybe he's having to reevaluate where he stands right now. The polls have been favorable for him, but he's got to watch out. And he's not a dumb guy, so we have to see how he reacts.
He also, you see some of the action in the courts with respect to some of the policies that he supports. Federal district court judge blocking the vax mandate for healthcare workers in 10 states yesterday after the Fifth Circuit had blocked Biden's vax mandate for employers with more than 100 employees a couple weeks back. So, he probably doesn't want to answer any of those uncomfortable questions, too, about his positions versus the court's actions in some jurisdictions.
Well, we keep talking about the pendulum, and in Illinois it continues to swing too far, and in other places it's slowing down. And so, I think he'd love to carry the pendulum further until he gets elected, but again, he's got to do new calculations, and the pressure outside is going to be real at some point. Certainly, in other states, it will be.
Oh, and aren't people getting sick of this indoor mask mandates? I mean, if masks worked, and I told Dr. Wardy this, then why are our numbers going up? Because we're one of 6 states now that are still the indoor mask mandate. And Pritzker, he won't, we can't ask him that question. And I don't know if it's Pritzker or Dr. Wardy who's deciding it, because she says as soon as we're under 200 cases a day, we can take the masks off. But I thought it was the governor's decision and not hers.
Well, I watch kind of mask behavior everywhere I go. I go to different sports events like you do, Amy. I go to a lot of places. And, it's fascinating now that even though the mask mandate's still on, I'm seeing it being relaxed tremendously across places. I see people walking around without masks. I see sports events where the masks are all down. Everybody knows it. We're still just playing the charade. But of course, some people are serious about it. They do mask up, but so many places are no longer following it, and certainly downstate they're not.
Oh, I know. And then we were at a Bulls game yesterday, and then I went to a UIC game. They don't have to wear masks, but our high school kids have to wear masks playing basketball.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason to anything.
Yeah, that's totally backwards. Those guys are, quote, in theory, at more risk than kids ever are. So, but that's, again, we're back to double speak, double think.
And with respect to the General Assembly, and that sharing of power that is apparently just theoretical in Illinois, we have Governor Pritzker, Tribune actually did this report, spending billions of dollars without the General Assembly. The General Assembly is MIA yet again.
That was fascinating because there's a lot of things a lot of things that don't surprise in Illinois. Most things don't surprise, right? It's just the par for the course of how things operate. But that one was an interesting one in that and the Tribune reported it, nobody else caught it, which is amazing. So kudos to them for reporting something like that. But the governor's got billions under his power that doesn't have to go through the appropriation process. How does that work? We already have a massively corrupt state. Now we're going to give the governor power over billions to spend in the ways that he deems, and don't forget, it's, again, campaign season. We're back to that same comment. So, he'd love to spend that in ways that programmatic, that, effectively will buy him, maybe some votes.
Well, sure. And the Democrat socialist leadership of the two chambers, they don't care because they're relying on his campaign cash come next year, and the Republican Party doesn't exist, so what's to stop him? I mean, it's the same conversation we had with respect to these never-ending series of emergency orders that confers all power to him during the pandemic.
I think that's the biggest thing that I think we have to fight eventually is how to get that power back and how for this never to happen again, but that's wishful thinking now. Hey, Dan, I want to mention one thing that you mentioned earlier about, you mentioned our Illinoisans, what is it, the most...
Docile.
Docile. And you mentioned what I might think of that, and I think it's important to maybe it deserves a more nuanced answer. Maybe Illinoisans who stay are the most docile, but we have to remember that on net, Illinois, with the exception of New York, Illinois has seen more people leave the state than any other state in the country. Since 2000, we've lost almost 1.5 million people on net, right? So you take the ones coming in from other states and the ones going out, and we're down 1.5 million people. So imagine that. That's the equivalent of adding up, losing losing an Aurora, a Naperville, a Joliet, a Rockford, a Springfield, an Elgin, a Peoria, a Champaign, a Waukegan, a Cicero, a Bloomington, an Arlington Heights, and a Bolingbrook. That we've wiped those out.
Wow.
So we do have people who are going to Tennessee or whatever. They're gone, and so I would say the ones that weren't docile are the ones who left, and the ones who are remaining are the ones who refuse to fight.
Ted Dabrowski, President at Wirepoints, wirepoints.com, all things Illinois policy related. Ted, thanks as always.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
If you're talking about it, Dan and Amy are talking about it. It's Chicago's Morning Answer on AM 560, The Answer.
Sean Thompson here to tell you about AM 560 2021 Food for the Poor campaign. Food for the Poor is a nonprofit, faith-based organization that provides food, water, medicine, clothing, and life-saving supplies directly to local organizations in Haiti. Haiti has been devastated by poverty, corrupt government, disease, civil unrest, natural disasters like the earthquake that struck in August, which has left millions of people without regular access to food. Food insecurity hits children and their families particularly hard, which is why the work that Food for the Poor does is so important. Literally, the only thing between these children and starvation is Food for the Poor and their partners, who are providing life-saving food relief in Haiti. In order to get this food to those who need it most, Food for the Poor needs your help. For a one-time gift of just $185, you can provide 6 months of life-saving food for 5 hungry children. That's all it takes. To make this donation, visit 560theanswer.com/foodforthepoor. That's 560theanswer.com/foodforthepoor, or just click on the Help Haiti banner. And thanks in advance for your generosity.
Usually you get to December and you think, I made it. This year